All right, we are back with the MetaMinds podcast, where we are all about relentless self-development and
consciousness optimization.
And on today's episode is a deep one. We're going to be talking about our experiences and really being as authentic and raw as we can be. And the topic is our struggles and how we have overcome challenges in the past.
Yeah, so not just in entrepreneurship, we're going to talk about just generally in life, how we have gone through horrible experiences, not necessarily horrible, but bad experiences, and how we've overcome them and how we've developed into the beings that we are today.
Yes.
So why is this important, do you think, Dan?
This is really important for, I think, you and I, just for our own ability to be able to look back on it. I think it's also really good in hindsight for us to reflect on, which hopefully in turn will add value to people listening. So hopefully they can learn through, try not to do the things that we've done. Try not to,
Good answer. Not the answer I was looking for there.
I didn't know what I was
Okay.
But we're with it.
This is important because it's important to talk about your struggles and be self-aware enough to recognize where you are actually failing, where you can be improving, and talk about it out loud. You don't have to do it on an open forum like this, obviously, but just actually, talking about your struggles. And more often than not, like in one of the previous podcasts, we talk about you don't even actually have to say it to a particular person. You just have to, you don't have to get advice and reflection from another person. You just have to say it out loud. And sometimes that's enough for you to go, oh, right, this is what I need to do, basically.
Yeah.
So,
and what I like to think of that as is you being your own coach, or you being your own life coach as such. So you say things that then you can then reflect on and be critical on yourself and what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the first struggle that we've been through, both of us, and no doubt everyone has been through, is identity issues or crisis. I said. Yeah, identity issues, basically.
Yeah.
Do you want to dive into yours?
Yeah, I'll start off with just my counseling example, I guess. So I kind of explained it in a previous podcast, but I went through the identity crisis of me wanting to get into the police force because people told me that I'd be good at that. Then I went into IT because it was something that I thought I was skilled at. And people were like, yeah, that would be good. That makes sense. You would look good doing that. And these were all thoughts that were kind of just put onto me and created my own identity of what I wanted without my own real understanding. Like it was a subconscious thing that I was almost doing. So then when I got into counseling, I was kind of like, yeah, this is something I really want to get into, and I'm really excited to help people. But then recently, over the last couple of months, I found myself going back into an identity issue where I found myself not engaging as much in the group when we started working in clinic, found myself taking a little bit of time to kind of find my voice and feel confident within that group. And now I'm working with a client, and I've started definitely engaging more in the reflecting team. And I feel like I've definitely found my identity again. But there was a big point where I was like comparing myself and thinking, is this good? Am I doing the right thing? Am I going to do wonderful things in this space? And that was kind of my big identity issue over the last couple of months, really. But I feel like I'm kind of coming out on that now, on the other side, hopefully.
And was there any key factors that kind of made you come out of that, or? Yeah,
I think for me, I do take a little bit of time to feel comfortable in certain situations. And because it was such a new experience where everyone, an example is you have 6-7 people sitting in a circle reflecting on a session, for example, while the client's watching you. And that, you've got to have confidence in your voice and confidence in your ideas and clarity of ideas to be able to present that in a cohesive manner that makes sense and adds value to the session. And early on, I was just stumbling, not figuring out what to say, and I'm a big analyzer, so I like to think about things and have clarity before I say something. So I think that's where my big slow point was, where I was kind of holding back on myself. But then over time and getting used to everyone and developing myself, that's where this self-development stage within myself with the podcast and with listening to all these books and podcasts and whatnot, that really gave me a lot more confidence in myself to go, no, you know who you are, you're doing well, stop being so critical, just keep doing it. Yes, you may fall down, but stand back up again, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at now. And I'm just going to go into it. I'm going to do my best, and that's all I can do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of identity issues for myself, and again, I'm sure absolutely everyone, particularly young males, go through this, is that society has particular expectations of you. Your friends have particular expectations of you. So do your family. Everyone has all these different expectations of you. And when you're growing up, you know, I'm still young, like you have ideas about yourself and what you want to be, but then you question those ideas basically. So I don't have a specific example except the fact that I've tried many different things, many different industries, many different friends, and you go through little kind of dips where you're like, is this what I want to be doing? Who am I? And why do I want to be doing this thing? Should I be doing this thing? And to be honest, it's nonstop, you know, and I'm sure it's nonstop for everyone. And it's not just about one particular thing. It's about most things. And part of that is just relentless thoughts, basically, that aren't my own. They're just thoughts that appear in my consciousness. I heard an interesting thing about this recently, to go a little bit off topic. I don't know if it was with you or not, but basically, the reason we have so many thoughts, I know where I got it from. The reason we have so many thoughts is because of this technological age, basically, because there's so much stuff that's actually automated, and everything, you know, the time is on our phone, and all of our food is ready for us. We don't have to be thinking about what food we're going to get during the day, how we're going to like actually get sustenance to survive. We've got so much more time to actually think about other things. And this is partly where a lot of different like mental disorders or, you know, depression, anxiety, and all these things stem from, partly because we've just got all this time to sit and think about these things. Whereas if we were cavemen as such, we would wake up in the morning and go, all right, how are we going to stay alive today? You know, not to that extent, but basically, you know, we've got shelter, cool. It's getting cold. Like, we need to move to that other shelter that we were in last winter because that was much warmer. Let's do that, family, rather than, why do I feel fat today? You know, like, so that's a bad example. But, you know, well, should I be doing this travel, or, you know, do I really want to be doing this job, or like, what's going on in my life, or, you know what I mean? So there's just so much more room to have these thoughts. Definitely. And the higher frequency of these thoughts that you have, then the more they're going to actually be prominent and make you question things in your life, basically. And that's basically this goes on to another one that we're talking about, is that both of us think quite a lot. And, you know, while that has allowed us to be potentially a bit more deeper and more philosophical thinkers than potentially your average person, and that can be fulfilling in a lot of aspects, the other side of that, the flip side of that, is that we have a lot of times where we're like, what is going on with my life? Like, why are we doing this, you know? And this is funny because we'll look back in this podcast in maybe 20 years and go, that guy had no idea what he was doing, obviously.
I hope so. I hope that I grow from this point.
That's it, But, I suppose the hugest part that I've learned about that is that it's okay, you know? That no one, it's really funny. No one has any idea what's going on.
Literally. Like, no one has any idea.
And something that keeps me really comfortable and grounded is when you think really grand scheme, like this global warming kind of crisis that's happening right now. Everyone's just starting to realize that, oh my God, all this plastic and all this, all the agricultural farming is destroying the planet. Maybe we should stop doing this. And I've got a lot of things in my life in place where I'm trying to, you know, prevent doing those things, like, you know, plant-based eating and that kind of thing. And every time plastic is offered to me, if I'm in a situation where I can say no, I say no. But yeah, it's like, I'm just saying, like, none of this really matters because no one really has any idea what's going on, you know? Like, and people are worried about this, they're like, what am I going to do in my life? But it's like, your life might not last longer than 5 years because the planet's going to die. Or your life might not last longer than a day because you might die in a car crash. It's very morbid to say.
But anything could happen. And we're just conscious beings floating on a space rock.
That's it.
Literally. So
it did that thought process, and reframing it in that way allows you to take a step back and kind of just relax into everything and go, it's fine. Like, no one has any idea what's going on. Like, do what you like doing. Obviously, you have to earn money. There's elements that you're not going to love. And, you know, you need to focus on all these different positive things, like positive eating and this kind of stuff. Just do your best, like, and that's okay. Whatever your best is okay.
That's it.
If you think you can do better, and be self-aware about that. Don't be lazy. You know what I mean? But and look, I'm not saying I'm the master of this. I'm definitely not the master of this. I still have crazy thoughts every day where I'm like, what's going on? But as soon as I get the chance to be mindful and remember that thing, it's like, man, don't worry. It's all good, dude. And socializing often like changes that fact as well, you know, because it takes your mind off thing. And again, in this day and age, in a lot of my business at home, I have to, you know, I'm in my office by myself. and I'm working on a computer by myself. And that is not human interaction. Even if I'm typing, like we've got 10 Facebook chats to clients and people while that's happening, it's like, oh yeah, cool, this false sense of like, connection, but that is not actual connection.
Yeah.
And if you do that for a few days in a row, it really only takes me, I'm quite self-aware of it now. That only takes me about a day for me to go, I need to go and hang out with someone now.
Yeah,
I'm going to drive myself crazy.
That's it, yeah.
Because you've got this time, again, to think and be in your head and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, and no social interaction, which
takes
a toll.
Huge.
Yeah.
And only a modern day issue. Really only of the last 20 years,
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's it, because I would argue that, like, in the cavemen days, they had lots of threats and predators and, lots of internal violence going on. But one of our biggest fears now as a society, speaking in general, but definitely like in the Western world, is the whole idea that social threats are now our biggest threats. So that's where I think a lot of depression and anxiety is perpetuated because of the fact that our biggest threats now, and the brain has recognized that our biggest threats are social threats most of the time. It's what people say, it's how people behave, it's all these things that the mind attunes to and goes, oh, well, that person reacted this way, maybe they mean that, but you're interpreting it, you don't actually know what they mean. And that's the brain's way of, or the ego's way, or whatever it is, of protecting your social sense of self, I guess. So yeah, it's just, like you said, just being aware, connecting with the right people, and trying to monitor it as well as you can.
It's so interesting that I always think of things in the context of caveman days and everything, and how it's relevant, because it is true. Like human nature, basically, you need to think about how these things are like in alignment with human nature, and are you acting in alignment with human nature? We're so far apart, like we've advanced so far past being human nature, just this raw, naked people walking around trying to eat apples off trees or whatever, straight out of Adam and Eve or whatever it is. And that's great. Like this technology is so fascinating and amazing, and it's advancing us in many ways, but a lot of it is like disconnected with human nature. And you just have to, I find that it helps me in my everyday life, that I think, how is this interacting with my everyday nature? For example, the computer thing. Oh, right, it's nothing to do with nature. So I need to go and sit in the sun with my shirt off for 20 minutes, get some real vitamin D, and then go and hang out with a friend and get some social interaction.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So running a business, we've covered this quite a bit.
We have,
But what have you struggled with running a business? That was literally our whole last podcast, basically.
Yeah, kind of.
One of our previous ones, but...
Yeah, well...
we can go over the point quickly.
Maybe just make it quick, because I think the biggest thing for me, my biggest struggle was just comparing myself to other people, which we definitely have touched on before. I find myself being a lot better at it today, and I think just over time I've just got used to the fact that it's a competitive world, being trying to be an entrepreneur and trying to actually like put yourself out there and create content that people will consume. It's something that you'll just naturally do. So I think that's my biggest thing. That was my biggest struggle, and I just had to try to be aware of it, and I still go through it every day. But yeah.
Yeah, and it's it's because if you're on social media at all in any capacity, then you are going to be comparing yourself to people. That is how it is. That is, again, human nature to compare yourself to other people so that you can become better. But it just so happens that now a lot of the things that we're comparing ourselves to is actually unattainable. Yeah. Not necessarily unattainable, but a lot of the time it's like, oh, I've got $10 billion and I'm a 20-year-old. And it's why don't I have that? And it's like, that's fair enough. But at the same time, that person was probably, given a lot of that wealth, or found that wealth in a lot of ways. And also that person's probably very unhappy in a lot of different ways that you are actually happy. And
that's it.
Anyway, again, it's a thing to keep in mind all the time, but it's very hard to do. Very hard to do. Because even we have these conversations very, very often about this topic in particular.
For sure, yeah.
And then I go away and 5 hours later on my Facebook and I'm like, why isn't my business like that?
Yeah, well, that's it. And that's that whole idea of like depleting yourself through comparative behavior and through just fully investing yourself in a social network or in a business. Because I find myself doing the exact same thing, that I will invest all of this time and I'll start feeling depleted, and then I'll recognize, well, I haven't seen someone, so I really need to plan. And one of my big things is I always try to like over plan, and then I get nervous because I'm like, oh, but I've got this thing I wanted to do for the business, but I've made this plan and I really want to see this person. I know that I'll feel a lot more energetic and come at my project from a different angle maybe. But I guess that's that whole thing of trying to balance. Like you really need to have that social interaction, or as I like to say, like you need to top your cup up, whether that's the gym, meditation, whatever. Like, yeah,
interesting to just add on to that point. I know we've hit it home quite a bit, but like sometimes I think I have this big project or I want to achieve 15 things in this week. So I need to lock myself in this room by myself and do this thing for 5 days in a row. But actually, and by doing that, I've given myself 5 times 24 hours in a day to actually get this thing achieved. That will be plenty of time. I'll get it done in time. More often than not, you're procrastinating here and there.
Yeah.
But if I actually go, you know what, I'll give myself these 2 days to do it, or all mornings of every single week, and book myself out in the afternoons to do socializing or to go outside, to go to the gym, to make sure I do all these different things. That actually limits the amount of time that I've got to do that thing. And that's what makes me more productive. But also the things that I'm doing outside of that time, which is hanging out with people, doing all these different things, that gives me the more energy and gets me out of my head, so that when I'm in that space, I am actually more motivated to do that thing.
Yeah.
So it's this like double positive that actually makes you do it.
And arguably could make you create better work.
Straight up.
Having that balance.
It does. Absolutely it does.
Yeah.
Whenever I go on like a hike or whatever, and then I come back and make some music, that music is always way better. I always go to music festivals and then come back and make music, and the content I create is crazy because I've just had this completely different experience,
Yeah.
Anyway, again, just driving that point home. And that's even now, I'm like, my brain just goes to, we'll block out all this time to do this thing, and it's like, no, but remember, Raymond, this isn't what's actually the most productive way to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, what's the next thing?
The next one is struggling to make decisions.
Yeah, well, this is again an identity issue, because
It is.
especially in this day and age of technology, there's infinite variables of like, what do you want to do with your life, and it's ever changing as well. You can travel, you can go live in another country. You can have children. You can do anything. It's literally, and this is partly why people have identity issues, because it's so overwhelming. Like, what do I choose? There's only one thing that you can choose. Which one do you do?
Well, that's it. And also, like, for you and I, like, we have a decent understanding of how, and I'd probably say a bit more of an optimistic look into the opportunity to start a business and be able to achieve something, or to be able to be malleable to change what we're doing. But then I also wonder, what about the generation, ahead of us, who potentially hasn't had access to all of this, and now they're presented with it, kind of thing. And it's interesting because when I was doing my psychology degree, I met a guy who was like working in a bank for like 30 years or something. He was passionate about it. He recognized that he wanted to do more, but he just took the job for what it was, did a great job, and then he recognized that he loved working with people. And at that point, he's like, I need to study psychology. And I met him at that transitional period in his life, and he was like there was a light radiating from him. You could see that he made the right decision. You could just see he was so happy, like unbelievably happy. And to me, that's a pure testament of someone who can do something for 30 years. Like, he was I don't know how old he was, but maybe in his 50s, and he just changed an entire industry to get into this thing. He was like, no, I need to do it. Why not? And I think as time goes on, it will be easier and easier with social networks, with these mentors, and with these proven methods. Because one thing that I seem to forget sometimes is that social networks are only like in their infancy. Like, they haven't even been around for 20 years yet.
10 years, yeah.
So it's like, what? Like, there's still going to be so many big changes. The possibilities are endless, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. Yeah.
And that's why making decisions is
hard.
hard.
That's why it's hard.
But, something that's another great point on that is that you're never too old to start anything.
Yeah.
Something that, like, Gary Vee says all the time. We just keep referencing Gary Vee. We've got to stop doing this. But anyway, we're just worshipping him now. But he says, like, when people call him up, whatever, and they're like, yeah, I'm 40 and I haven't started anything. He's like, shut up, you're super young.
Yeah.
And when he first started saying that, I was like, I don't really know about that. That's old kind of thing. But that's a social convention if you watch that episode.
Yeah.
But in terms of, struggling to make decisions, I suppose, like, that person is, 40 or 50? Like, and he's just like, no, I'm going to try this thing because I've always wanted to do this thing.
Yeah.
Or he didn't know what it was until he tried something that led him to that decision, and he's 50 and he loves doing it, and that's fine now.
Yeah.
Big thing, and, like, this overnight success, you always see people that got successful, but you never saw their whole backstory, and you're like, they came out of nowhere. And sometimes it really does seem like they did.
Yeah.
I'll give the example of, like, I really wanted to be a music producer, and I still produce music and I love performing and that kind of thing. But when I was 18, I was like, I'm going to, like, get huge now, basically. Yeah. Because there was a few people that were already blowing up in that stage, and I'm like, how are these people overnight successes or whatever? But the thing is, it's like, even if I started producing at 50, a lot of, like, famous people like Beethoven and stuff like that never actually had successful pieces until they were that age or whatever. It's like, a huge part of these pressures basically to need to be successful in these things is because you see other people around you. This is comparing yourself again.
That's exactly right.
That are successful and like, I need to be like that. And if I'm not like that now, then I need to give up because there's no point. But it's like, no, everyone's on their complete own journey.
100%.
And you're doing your thing and you're on your level of learning and you'll get to it when you need to get to it. Look, you can use that to push yourself forward. And I do because I'm like, screw that guy. I think my music's better than that guy or whatever it is, whether it is or not. And that I can use it to motivate myself forward. But then it's not like, screw that guy. I'm going to do this because of that, or I need to do this before him anyway.
Yeah.
Tangenting now.
But that kind of sounds like one of the big realizations that I had, where it's kind of like you need to better yourself. You know, if you can compare to someone else who's got completely different situation, environment, completely different perception and mind, then you're comparing yourself. That's like comparing yourself to like a completely different object. That's like comparing, you know, a TV to my face or something. Like they're completely different things, but you're putting them in the same category. So it's kind of like you need to improve yourself and focus on what helps you feel fulfilled and move forward as such.
Yeah.
That was one thing. That was one of my biggest struggles, but I guess we've kind of spoken about that.
Yeah.
Moving on. This one's a good one. So struggling with productivity and also how to spend your time, figuring out how to allocate time, which you kind of mentioned before with your project and trying to, bless you, trying to spend time with friends or go to the gym or whatever. But yeah, struggling with productivity.
And how to spend your time. Again, this comes back to decisions and identity issues. It's all the same thing, really.
Yeah.
But how do you spend your time? Well, I mean, obviously you have to... I obviously split it up in terms of things that I'm passionate about, things that are going to be productive, things that are going to make me feel good and healthy as well, because they all tie into each other. And if I'm spending time doing something that makes me feel good and is healthy, even like, you know, like I do like going to the gym, even though some people don't like going to the gym, but it does positively impact the rest of their life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There can be habits that you don't want to do that do actually enhance the rest of your habits.
For sure.
So
yeah,
you just have to be, I mean, I like to be aware of that. But struggling with productivity, I mean, this is huge, and we talk about this a lot in that, you know, it's about balance, and you need to have that balance. But sometimes, like the greater balance, say over a month, the first week of that month, you're going to be crazy productive. And then you might dip in those middle 2 weeks, and you're going to feel like trash because you're like, I'm not producing anything, I'm not making anything. But that first week, I was making an amazing amount of stuff. What happened, and why do I feel like this? And you need to forgive yourself for that, because you just can't be here. You can't be up the whole time. No. Sometimes that up can last for months, you know? And I'm like, wow, I'm crushing it right now. Everything's going great. And I'm like doing this, doing that. But then the dip comes and it's even harder than ever. And you dip completely. And you're like, I'm not creating anything. What's going on? So I find having a varied experience, going on hikes, going to music festivals, doing different things, whatever that thing is for yourself, like that helps me, you know, come back to that thing. But also forgiving yourself for having that dip, and also finding different things to do in that dip that is going to help you when you come back up again, you know? That's not to say don't try. No. But for example, if you're doing something creative like making music, then sometimes you can try and you can show up every day and nothing will happen. Or it will happen, but it's not good. Yeah. So I find having a varied experience, or doing other things, being like, that's okay. I'll really focus hard on the gym and like eating healthy and working a little bit more and putting more time into my business right now. Or for example, if my business is failing, I'll go stuff it. I'm just gonna don't worry about that for now. I'm focused on music or whatever it is. And then you come back to that thing and you've got this fresh mindset and you're like, oh, I'm ready to go. Let's do this. I've got to, or you're deep in this other thing and then you have this realization and you're like, oh, that's what I need to do. And you just put this thing down and you dive into the other thing, you know? So I find that happens a lot for myself as well. And that's just like, forgiving yourself for the dips. Like that's a huge like productivity hack, I might even say, you know, because it happens to every person, everyone. We're just people, you know, like. So. And
another hack within there that I'm hearing is recognizing what things will fill your cup up or what things make you feel alive again or whatever that is. And like you said, the gym or going on a hike or going to a music festival, like these things vary your situation enough so that your mind isn't in that stagnant process of like, oh, I'm working on this project, I'm staring at this screen, why is nothing coming to me? But if you let your mind just focus on something else, come back, then, you know, you'll have a whole new processing. Your mind will process it in potentially a whole new way. So
just change your environment. Like a really quick one to do is just go outside of your house and go for a run, like physically just run. Obviously, put some good shoes on, I'm not going to tell you how to run, but
you guys know.
Just run until you're physically exhausted, like as fast as you can.
Yeah,
you might only get 200 meters. This is like honestly, you figure out how unfit you are. That's something that's positive out of that. But also then you come back and like your cortisol spiked and everything, and you come back and you're like, it's all good now. I've got just new energy, you know what I mean?
That's it, yeah.
But varying your experience and varying your environment is a huge thing that I've found for myself, you know? Don't just lay in bed, watch Netflix on Friday night, even though it can be a great thing to do.
Yeah.
And, sometimes that is what you do need to do, but maybe try something else.
That's it. Yeah, that's it, for sure.
Well, we've smashed it out again. So, the other thing we really want to talk about is finding people that share your values. You know, again, we talk about this in a couple of different podcasts, but it's huge. Like, and naturally, you are going to find people that fit into your life because of what you're interested in, right? But like, when you hang out with someone and you truly leave because like energetic, because you've actually had conversations about the specific things in your life because it's on that same level as you, whether your level is like nerding out of a Minecraft or video games.
Yeah, well, that's it, yeah.
Or your level is like hustling entrepreneurship 24/7 until you die. Like find someone that's on that thing because you can chat to them and relate to them and learn from each other and bounce off each other and just being in that space with people that are like doing the same thing as you is like,
it's refreshing. Like,
man,
it's good to know that other people are going through it.
That is huge because when you feel alone and you're struggling through something, you just feel like nothing can help you.
Yeah. And the big metaphor that I really like is kind of the whole idea of sitting with your discomfort. So the metaphor that I like is you're caught in a rip, like you're in the ocean, you're caught in a rip, and you're trying to keep your head above water, right? So the whole idea is, how do you keep your head above water? What things are you doing to keep your head above water when things feel so overwhelming? So for us, we're talking about all these things that could have broken us at any point.
And they do sometimes.
And they do, 100%.
Yeah.
And that's when we get, pulled under the rip. But then somehow we still fight and we keep going through. So I guess that's kind of one thing that I always try to think to myself. It's kind of like, things will be uncomfortable. You will be caught in situations that are hard and you feel like there's no end to it. But trying these little steps that you've mentioned and I've mentioned have definitely helped us kind of have a bit more clarity and helped us top our cups back up so we feel, energized to go back into it again as such.
Just to build on that analogy, if you're in Australia, chances are you know how rips work before you get into a rip. You know what they look like. You know how they work, and you know how to swim to the left or the right rather than swimming forward. And so that's really good that if you're about to get caught in a rip in entrepreneurship or the gym, whatever it is, like you need to understand potentially what that rip is going to look and feel like and potentially what some workarounds are to get out of that rip so that when you get into this mindset where you're like down and you want to die or what you're feeling really horrible, that doesn't stay for a very long time, and you know how to get out of it by connecting with other people or whatever the solution is in that.
Yeah, that's great
environment. I just saw an opportunity to build on that metaphor, and I was like, go for it.
Yeah, I liked it.
Rips. Yeah, if you're in Australia, you'll know exactly what we're talking about. Every time I go to the beach, I see an Asian tourist caught in a rip. I'm like, this guy didn't learn. There's the one thing you need to know about Australia.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it.
That's kind of it.
I really like this. This is a bit more of a kind of laid back, natural kind of, I suppose we are just talking about ourselves, but let us know if you got any value out of that, or if you have any struggles that you're going through that you would want to chat to us about. We're available on Instagram or on YouTube.
Yep.
Pretty much any other platform where you can DM Dan and I personally.
Yep.
And get in contact with us.
One other thing is, if there are any topics specifically that you'd like us to take on head first, let us know in the comments if there's anything you're struggling with or anything. We'd really love to look into what's going on out there in the community as
Absolutely.
such.
Yeah, we've got a few ideas for a podcast just like this one. So if you like this kind of bit more laid back format, us kind of talking about our experience a little bit more, let us know about that as well.
Sure. Yep.
Thanks, guys. Stay meta, and we'll catch you soon. Woo.